Everybody. I'm Joan Ferrini-Mundy, the president of the University of Maine and our regional campus, the University of Maine at Machias. I'd like to welcome you to our town hall today, where we have invited faculty, staff, students. There may be community members here, so we hope to engage you in this next hour and a half or so with your questions, with an update really on how things are going here at the University of Maine and at UMaine Machias. So there's lots to talk about. I'd like to begin by introducing the team that I have with me here today. And they'll all just say hello and let you know who they are, so that as you need to connect faces and names later, you can do so. With that, I'll turn to our new provost, Provost John Volin at the University of Maine. John.
Thank you, Joan. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Volin, as you just heard, and I'm the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost.
And Robert.
Hi, folks. I'm Robert Dana. I'm the Vice President for Student Life and Inclusive Excellence here in Orono and also at Machias. And it's a delight to be with you.
Dan.
I'm Daniel Qualls. I'm the head of campus here at the University of Maine at Machias and the Vice President of Academic Affairs.
Terrific. Marnie.
I'm Marnie Kaler. I'm the Dean of Students and Admissions here at the University of Maine at Machias.
Melissa.
Good afternoon. I'm Melissa McGinnis. I'm an associate professor of microbiology at the University of Maine. I'm a virologist, and I've been serving as the lead of the scientific advisory board for the UMaine system.
Dick.
Hello, I'm Dick Young, interim executive director of auxiliary services, and my role is leading the testing program here at the university.
Great. Kimberly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly Whitehead, Vice President and Chief of Staff to the President.
Joan, you went mute there.
And John, please.
Okay, you're going now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Harrison.
Hello, my name is Harrison Ransley. I am the president of the UMaine Student Government Association, Inc.
And Karina. You're mute now. You're muted.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that. Hi, my name is Karina Iskandarova, and I am the secretary for the Graduate Student Government, and I'm also a student in global policy at the University of Maine.
And Avery.
Hello, my name is Avery Davis. I am a senior, and I'm currently the student body president at the University of Maine at Machias.
Thank you all. So I want to thank these panelists. They're here to be ready as we go into the Q&A part. We'll do a couple of brief presentations first, just as a way to kick this off. So I'll begin, and I hope my screen is now showing. How is that? Kimberly, we're good? Okay. So I'd like to begin by, first of all, thanking everyone for coming together and for being a part of this call. Hopefully we have a representation from across both campuses and from all of the different groups that have a stake in our universities and our university system, because it's just been a remarkable several months. And I know that everyone on this call has been affected in many ways, in profound ways, since March, since the beginning of the pandemic, and since we have experienced that together. It's great to be able to be with you today and talk a bit about a few of the things that are happening on the campuses as a result, but also to look ahead to the future and to think about where we are. And one thing that I'd like to just say in opening is, I have been talking to colleagues and to students and to our folks since March very, very regularly. And one thing that I'm so impressed by is that we aren't really slipping into once we get through this and can get back to normal mode, everything will be the same and fine. We're kind of embracing what we need to do as we face these challenges right now of coming together for higher education in a face-to-face way and in the middle of a pandemic. With an eye toward what can we learn and how can the future be even better and stronger and different. So I just want to really begin by thanking everyone for all that you have done. Every single one of you listening in on this call You have done something to make it possible for us to come together as universities, to continue to serve our students, to continue to keep learning going in very new ways. I'm sorry, we okay? And so that's happening. And there are a few facts that I would just share to give you a sense of how it is. So as people watching know, we are open on both campuses with students in our residence halls. Here you see the Orono data. I point out this 238, that's the number of rooms reserved in Orono for quarantine and isolation. So a lot of what we've been doing is preparing and planning for how we can be sure that we're ready for everybody to be back and to meet whatever comes through this semester. Already we've had thousands of students participating in testing, and Melissa and Dick will tell you a bit more about our testing programs. Our enrollments are solid, and you see the number here at UMaine. Current number of cases of COVID UMaine system-wide are 8, and I'll say more about where you can find that information regularly. And then here on this campus in Orono, 70.4% of students have the opportunity to be taking one course face-to-face at least. Now, we know it is a really different semester, and we are very, very pleased and impressed with how everyone is making this work and finding a way for us to keep going. At Machias, about 100 students in the residence halls. This number of tests administered has gone up since I made this slide. No cases at the moment. Rooms available for isolation. Solid enrollment. Overall, tremendous early college enrollment. What a great thing that Machias is able to serve students in the area and well beyond with their early college offerings and enrollment up a bit. And about 55% of courses sections are on campus. So we are functioning. We're making our way through it. And life goes on. The things that we have been planning for and working on for years are happening. So if you're in Orono, you haven't strolled by the new building site for the Furland Engineering Education and Design Center, you should. I find it uplifting to see that we're building a brand new classroom space that had been in the works for some time, and the construction has begun. Everything looks differently, and we know that. So those of you who are online and who aren't on campus, here are a few glimpses of what it has looked like in Orono, including the testing tents that we used at the start of the semester, where students could drive through with their families and be tested before they moved into the dorms, the revised arrangements in the rec center, classrooms that look quite different with desks moved apart and spacing being dictated by all of us, by those who've been watching out for our safety. And I understand that this is working, that students are complying and sitting where they're supposed to sit and wearing masks, and all is going along. We have the Black Bear Pact as well as the Clippers Care Pact. We have professors who are creating kits so that students can do their labs remotely, and they're shipping them off through the mail to students wherever they are, and teachers, professors who are working to teach remotely, and students who are working to learn remotely. We also have tremendous engagement across the state of Maine in trying to be helpful with our research capacity during a pandemic, everything from student-led project to create the instructions for making thermometers, to the work that's being done with breweries and other organizations around the state to provide hand sanitizer that is hospital grade, to producing materials with our manufacturers that can be used for the production of PPE components, and to work that we've done to help do the testing of N95 masks, and much, much more. The university has reached out in extraordinary ways, and we have a lot to say on that front if people would like to hear more about that, to be a partner across the state. I'm very pleased that we have launched the President's Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Very important activity, a permanent council. Well, the people on it will move through, but this is a standing committee of the president, and they have begun their work, and we will be watching carefully for their recommendations to us for what we can do on our campuses to ensure that we put diversity, equity, and inclusion at the center of all that we do with our actions, not just with how we talk about this. So this is a great group. We're trying hard to communicate. We've been listening to you and have heard concerns over the last few months about needing ways to find information quickly. There are lots of places to go for information, but two places that I would point to the Friday future casts that we're doing here at UMaine and UMaine Machias, where we try to provide information about what's coming up, and also the daily briefings that come from the University of Maine system, as well as their website, which includes a dashboard that talks about the numbers of cases that have been determined with our asymptomatic and other kinds of testing. What's coming up? Lots of challenges, and this is not all of them, but we need to continue to have plenty of activities and ways to get a little break as the weather gets cold and as people will be inside more. And we know that everyone is working toward this, planning for the departure around Thanksgiving. We know that faculty and staff are continuing to work hard to use new modalities for their instruction, and we want to be sure that they're getting all the support we can provide. Similarly, students are in some cases still needing technology support, and we need to hear about those concerns and questions. Bringing in our next class to the University of Maine and UMaine Machias, that work is going on. And so we are very proud of how things are going so far, and we want to be sure that we have interested students able to get their questions answered and able to learn more about the university going forward. I won't talk a lot about it here today. We can have more town halls on any of these topics if people are really interested, but the costs to our research enterprise are quite significant. You've seen earlier that some of our research has needed to pivot to being supportive and helpful in the state, which we think is great. But what that means is the research that was being funded needs to go on pause or slow down. And so we're working with our researchers to make sure that they're able to continue and to move forward. These are just a few highlights. I could tell you many, many stories of people who have just been remarkable in the last 6 months in ensuring that the University of Maine keeps going. We've had great fiscal support, both from the donors who provided dollars to the Black Bears Care Fund, the Student Crisis Fund, and then the Federal CARES Act. We have been mindful that we need to get dollars in hand and back out to students as they need them as rapidly as we can. And then last week's very big news, the Harold Alfond Foundation, which is a Maine foundation, has made an award of $240 million to the University of Maine system. This comes at a time when we really need this kind of bright look toward the future. It will enable us to do many, many things at UMaine, UMaine Machias, and system-wide. A chunk of this is for Black Bear athletics, and we will be unfolding the details of that over the coming weeks. A large piece is aimed at doing things innovatively across the system to aim at student success and retention. There are resources for the Maine Graduate and Professional Center, which is based in Portland, but which has a statewide reach in terms of its involvement, particularly with the University of Maine School of Business. And then a concept for a Maine College of Engineering, Computing, and Information Science to be collaboratively led by the University of Maine in partnership with USM and others. So tremendous amount of activity going on that fits with this important goal of making sure that the people of Maine have access to a first-rate flagship state research university. With that, I'll conclude and pause here and stop. And I'm going to turn now to Melissa McGinnis and Dick Young, who are both going to speak to talk to us about, first from Melissa, the Scientific Advisory Board. Now, you know that you can be sending questions in, and Kimberly, can you please remind us of how they do that so that we'll get to a place where we'll take them up?
Sure. Questions can be emailed to the umaine.alerts@maine.edu email address, or questions can be placed in the chat in this live stream.
Thank you. And with that, I will introduce Melissa McGinnis.
Thank you very much. President Ferrini-Mundy, if you can stop sharing your screen, then I'll start sharing mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can everyone see my slides? Yeah, okay, great, thank you. So it's been really an honor to lead the UMaine System Scientific Advisory Board, which has been chaired by President Ferrini-Mundy. And the Science Advisory Board was established by the Chancellor of the UMaine System to provide science-based evidence so that we can face these challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, both in this semester and also going forward. So this has included faculty members from the University of Maine and the University of Southern Maine with expertise in virology, biomedical sciences, immunology, and biomedical engineering, and also with a University of Maine statistical consultant. We have been following the transmission, mitigation, and safety surrounding SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, and helping to develop a public health response to combat this pandemic, as well as follow the development of vaccines and treatments, and to develop a testing plan for our University of Maine system. What we know about SARS-CoV-2 transmission is that when someone is infected with the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, they can transmit the virus in droplets that are released in the air when they are speaking, when they sneeze, when they cough, or even when they're just breathing. And those droplets can land in the nose, mouth, and possibly in the lungs of individuals who are within about 6 feet distance of someone that's infected. And those droplets can also fall onto surfaces and objects. And then when we touch those surfaces and objects, we can actually transmit the virus to ourselves or transmit it to others. And so that's why it's important that we think about prevention of the spread of SARS-CoV-2 and think about the role that ventilation plays in this, physical distancing, face coverings, cleaning, and hand hygiene. So I don't know if many of you have seen this on the internet recently, but this is the Swiss cheese model of SARS-CoV-2 transmission and prevention. And this is the reason why we have a multi-layered approach, because no single measure is sufficient to help with the prevention of SARS-CoV-2 transmission. We have to have all of these layers in place. And so we have to make sure that we're physically distancing, that we have good ventilation, that we're using face coverings, that we have strong hand hygiene, fast and sensitive testing, contact tracing, and also surface cleaning. Because there are these imperfections in each layer, we have to have this multi-layered approach to ensure the success on our campuses. For our public health measures, we know that it's important to have rapid high throughput diagnostic testing for SARS-CoV-2, and that when someone is positive, that we need to isolate that individual. So if you have COVID-19, it's important to stay home until you're healthy enough to return. In addition, anyone who is a close contact of someone who has COVID-19 would be traced through contact tracing, and then those individuals would be quarantined for 14 days to ensure that they're not spreading the virus. And that's really important because someone can be spreading the virus to others when they feel healthy, and the virus can actually be within the body for up to 2 weeks without someone even knowing it. And at that time, you can be spreading it to others. In order to determine the spread of the virus on campus and to determine if people might be shedding the virus, we're surveilling the SARS-CoV-2 transmission across campus a number of ways. One way is through wastewater testing. This is being done on a few campuses across the UMaine system, including the University of Maine. And this has been a partnership with a company called CES, who collects the samples, and they've been provided to Dr. Rob Wheeler's lab. And the testing is being done in Dr. Wheeler's lab, and it has involved students and also has involved other professors across campus. And it's really been a wonderful collaboration between faculty members, students, as well as facilities management. And all of the people that have been involved are listed here. This is a way in which we can determine if virus is being shed. And if there is an increase in the amount of virus being shed in the wastewater, then that can be detected using a test called a qPCR test. And this is a test that was developed by a Maine company, IDEX. And using this, if we start to see an increase in the amount of virus in the wastewater, then that can help inform our public health response. In addition, we have individual surveillance testing. So many of you may have been involved in this testing, and you may be involved in the future. We had 3 phases of testing. Phase 1 and 2 were our baseline testing, when everyone was tested when they were coming in, if they were within a special cohort. So residential students or people arriving from out of state or other special groups were tested and then tested again within 10 days. Now we're moving into the phase 3 testing, and we've gone through 2 rounds of that so far. And this is involving both the individual testing and the wastewater testing. In our phase 3 testing, the results are shown down here. And so far in round 1 and round 2, we have had a prevalence rate of 0.17% and 0.3%. And we are reporting all of these results on the Together for Maine website. So if you are interested in knowing how many positive cases there are on a campus, or you're interested in knowing how the testing is going, you can check in on this website, which is updated daily. So that's a dashboard that you can look at any time to determine how things are going. This phase 3 testing that we're doing now is a random testing that is about 10% of the population every 10 days or 1% of the population each day, depending on how you want to look at it. And this is providing us with some information about how things are going on campus so that we can determine what our prevalence rate is. As we're moving into the colder season, we're moving into fall and winter, we have to be really mindful of ventilation as we're in closed spaces. So we want to avoid the 4 C's in order to reduce COVID-19 transmission. So we want to avoid closed spaces, crowded places, close contact, and contact time. And it's really important that we continue to do all of the things that we promised to do in the Black Bear Pact going forward. And that means that we want to keep wearing our face coverings, keep up with our hand hygiene, with our physical distancing, try to be in well-ventilated places, and avoid closed spaces. If anyone has any questions, of course, I'll be here and I'll be happy to answer them.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. And I think what we'll do is we'll have Dick Young speak next. He's going to talk to us more specifically about the testing protocols. And I noticed that we do have a question in about testing. So it has to do with the sampling, Dick. So let's first hear your comments and then we'll take up the question.
Thank you, President Ferrini-Mundy. I will share my screen. Hopefully you can see my screen. Okay. Speaking today on the testing protocols, I think one thing to bring to your attention is that my responsibility and role is I am part of the Emergency Operations Committee here on campus, which is a committee that's been overseeing the reopening of campus since March 13th closing, as we bring a lot of the various units back online and bringing students to campus. One aspect of that is testing protocols and logistics. And we've been doing this testing since July 22nd is when we began the testing process here on campus. Our testing procedures have been set up where we were testing at a higher level than the state of Maine in terms of what we were testing. Some states are exempt and that has grown here in the last few months. But currently we tested all individuals that came from any state from out of the state of Maine here on campus. And broke that into one cohort. Then we had another cohort of all the students who lived on campus in the residence halls, another congregate living setting where we have a lot of people living in a close quarters. And then we also have special groups that are on their one-on-ones or working together in educational environments, work in close quarters, potentially less than 6 feet. And so we went through and tested those groups, which included athletics, student teachers, marching band, clinicals for the School of Nursing, graduate assistants and faculty and staff from out of state. So those are our cohorts that we put together with the testing. And we did a phase 1 and phase 2 testing of each one of those. And that was over the course of a 2-week period. You're looking at both our testing sites, and I apologize for the picture of the tent. It still hasn't been updated, but we tested at the Alfond Arena with the special. We started in July 22nd, 2020. And we went through until the students returned to campus. And we started through with a drive-through tent aspects that a lot of the students here on campus went through. And that was a 6-bay tent. And that was used to provide testing asymptomatic for all students who arrived. At the same time, we had a system to make sure that if they entered into the residence halls, we would provide wrist-colored bands that allowed the people as they approached the residence hall, everyone knew that they had gone testing. If not, they were reverted back to the testing tent to make sure they were tested prior to entering or living in our residence halls. We worked with our partners, which was set up for the University of Maine system. Jackson Laboratory was the one that processes all our samples. They've been a great partner. They've been able to turn test results around in a very short period of time. in most cases less than 72 hours. And that's driving the samples to Farmington, Connecticut. So that's quite a feat that they've done for us, and their accuracy has been extraordinarily well done. Our other partner is Convenient MD, who has been here on campus, and a lot of our students and faculty have met the group that does the testing. They're a wonderful group of people who work hard at what they do. And they provided our testing and taken the samples for each individual that came through our testing facilities. In terms of reporting, Jackson Lab has maintained and met most of these requirements within 72 hours. We've been right on it. We've been sending tests down to, as I said, Farmington, Connecticut. They did process through the weekends, which would allow our student population not to stay in quarantine for a great period of time. And as well as we also provided the results in secure login. Once we went through some needed IT, addressed some of the issues we had with secure login, and lately it's been working quite well. And so that has all worked along well as we went through that phase 1 and phase 2 testing. Obviously, when we went through the phase 1 and phase 2 testing, we were looking to make sure that we didn't have any positive results or positive cases within the group that we were testing. If we did find a positive result, then we were immediately notified by Convenient MD. And that was well before the test results were then posted in the portal. Then we would contact the student by the medical provider as well as the university, and we would then put that particular individual in isolation. It's great to say that as we went through those phase 1 and phase 2, we had very, very low positivity rate. We tested a lot of individuals through that process of about 9,000 to 10,000 students that went through twice, counting our population twice, with very low rate of positive rates that went through our testing. Cutler Health Center is another piece of this testing procedure, and they produce symptomatic cases and close contacts. So if you are not feeling well or have symptoms, you're directed to the health center. There, they're able to do a different type of testing, which is a diagnostic testing that they do with their tests. And their tests locally and processed. And right now, we're getting them back within 12 to 20 hours test result. As Melissa spoke to, this is one of the key aspects of managing and controlling and containing the spread of the virus is early recognition, testing, and then taking the necessary steps of isolation or quarantine when we have a positive result. With the help of Cutler Health Center and Eastern Maine Northern Light, we're able to get that done under 20 hours in most cases. So that's a wonderful feat. Been great partners in making that happen for us. We also on campus have isolation and quarantine spaces, which are available for all students who live on campus. We have made arrangements for those who may need it based on a CDC recommendation. But right now, both Bowman Nelson DTAP has 48 spaces that we have available, as well as another 150 spaces in Knox Hall, with a total of about 198 spaces on campus. As of day before yesterday of Sunday, that was fully, no one was in any of these spaces. We were at 0. So that's wonderful to say for the campus for what we've been doing and the students have been doing in terms of taking the mitigation factors, wearing the mask and keeping distance, doing the things that need to be asked. It does show up in these types of situations where you see very low use of our quarantine and isolation. We're proud of that. Transportation van was also put together, and as we speak about is a van that was put with a barrier between the driver and the back, so we can now transport people from both ends of campus to our isolation and quarantine spaces safely for the driver and safely for the student. We do that from the health center. We do that from the various locations on campus where they may be, and to ensure that they get to Knox Hall or Bowman Nelson safely and timely, and we are able to follow that up with our team from there. Just to talk a little bit about the next piece to go quickly with testing, it's contact tracking. And I can't say enough about the individuals who have been helping in this particular area. Student Affairs has been wonderful partners here in making this happen. There are UMaine care managers, and they have been tracking each one of our cases with a positive case. We've had, as of late, we've had 20 cases total over the course of the semester. And each one of those cases, they've contacted each one of the positive cases. They've talked to each one of the close contacts and helped us manage the quarantine isolation spaces to get them in a timely manner, safely manner. And on top of that, our dining services has been extraordinarily well received in managing those spaces by providing care packages of food to there in case they get in there when there's in between meal times, and then they actually deliver meals directly to these spaces for the students that are in those particular areas. So a great team effort there. A lot of individuals come to bear here to make it all work and be successful. In terms of quarantine and spaces and release, the ones that are put in by the CDC is responsible for that, and we have arrangement with them where they provide us documentation. They do daily checks, the CDC does, with people in isolation or quarantine. They have what they call a SARA alert, which is an electronic method to reach out to the students, and they fill that out every day, daily in the quarantine. In isolation, they call them directly there and have a conversation with them and go over their symptoms and ensure that they're doing well. And at the end of it all, they send documentation, a letter that officially releases them from quarantine. A couple other things to help you help out in managing things on campus. We've seen a lot of comments come in from these various resources. We have the COVID testing guidance or questions about testing. This email address is one that you would send it to, and we would get back to you to answer your questions or make arrangements for your testing. And we use that also to support the testing feature if you want to change your appointments and change your time. That is where you reach out. Student Life has also put up a website, which is maine.edu return compliance report. And that is a place where if you see things on campus that you're unfamiliar with or things you don't quite understand in terms of maybe someone not wearing a mask or in terms of people gathering too closely, you can anonymously put in a message there, and that is followed up by the EOC in terms of what may be going on and try to rank that up to maybe there's some events going on campus, but we check each and every one of those. And one of the other ones is we have a COVID hotline, which is a 581-2681 for students to also call in for questions that relate to the COVID testing, to actually what's going on campus. We have a rapid response team that responds quickly. So in terms of if we get a test, we get a positive, this rapid response team gets together, and that's where the care managers, our whole team comes together, formulates a plan, and then we execute the plan. Get the person in quarantine safely, and also set up the dining, the housing, and Vice President Robert Dana oversees that operation, and he's been a great leader in that area for us to make it been very successful. Quickly, the third phase of testing, if we've moved into, that's where we are now doing random samples of campus. We're in now, we just completed phase 3. We'll start seeing some statistics from there, but 1 and 2 is completed. We do about 850 individuals on our campus, each one of those phases. Those are randomly selected. There's about a 6% chance that you'll be selected twice. So we have had individuals that get selected twice. And I think we had 61 the first time and 42 the second time. So we have the ability that you may be selected twice within that. It's normal with the statistical sample that we have. We also have another 250 that President Ferrini-Mundy has determined would be also done through a sampling randomly. And we've been doing 1,000 tests every 2 weeks, or now every 3 weeks. And we start phase 4 next week, coming up on phase 4. So again, this is ability to actually see the predictability of COVID in our community. It's very important that you participate. It's very important that you go. It does make a difference for us, and it gives us the ability to keep our campus safe as well as you as an individual. These are some of the reasons why I put it up there quickly. You can go out and find the reasons why, but again, if you're not on campus, you may be selected in error. You may have been tested. If a person has been tested positive, we wouldn't want to test them again. You may have a medical exemptions. Those should all be communicated with the COVID testing.edu email, and we'll follow that up with the various sources to confirm everything that comes in for people who may have certain situations where they may not be able to participate in the testing. If you live totally off campus and remotely, those are other reasons that we do check and make sure. So again, not to say it is mandatory, it is required, but at the same time, we do provide opportunities for those who have things in life that come up and can't make the testing. And the university has been very supportive in that and making it happen. I would also like to take the chance to thank Jason Hoyt and the team from the Lifelong Learning Division of Lifelong Learning. They've been exceptionally well in taking over the testing aspect of the day-to-day operations, and also the CCA has done a fabulous job in supporting the testing through their ticketing system software. So you do get a ticket, and that comes from the CCA. So thank you very much, President Ferrini-Mundy.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Melissa. Both packed with information, obviously, and much that we could discuss at some length. But there is a question here, and I'll take a stab at it and then ask that Dick or Melissa or Robert add more, which is that the person says, I've not heard of any janitorial staff that have been tested, nor have I heard of any plans to do so. I'm referring specifically to the touchpoint staff. Can you explain why this is the case? These folks are the ones that are most susceptible to the virus. So thank you very much for the question. And as Dick explained, phase 3 testing is where we've gone to a different model where we are taking a random sample of all of the people who work on campus. And so in fact, everyone whose job requires them to be here on the campus is a potential person to be called to test. And I know for a fact that there have been custodial staff in the testing queues. And so again, if they're coming up in the random sample, that's happening. Now that said, we do have other as Dick said, sort of reserved tests that we are right now using in the random sampling. But if there is at any point a group that the EOC or others deem needs specific testing, we're completely set up to take care of that as needed. I don't know, Dick or Robert, if you'd like to add more to that. And in general, if people are interested in a test, perhaps a bit of advice about how they can get one.
I think the questioner may be asking whether a contract agency that we hired to do the touch point screening is being tested. And I believe, Dick may know, I believe that their company has testing requirements, and certainly Dick and Jason Hoyt can make that available to the contracting agency. It's called ServPro.
You're correct, Robert. So, and anyone who reaches out with a testing need, we will bring that to the EOC and discuss it, and we'll work through it. So if there is a need and it's deemed that it does need to be done, we will follow that up. So.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do now is go to the questions that have been coming in. And the first one I'm going to signal to the provost. Marnie, did you just have your hand up? Did I miss you? No. Okay. Because we should also be sure to give our Machias colleagues a chance to chime in. So I'll start with the question, but I'm also going to look to Harrison, Karina, and Avery to just comment after a couple more minutes here about, sort of what you're noticing from the student perspective, what advice you have for areas where we need to keep pressing and keep working, and also kind of what you can do to help enlighten everyone about how it is. But before I go to that, and then to Dan and Marnie, let me start with a question for the provost, which is, every class seems to be using a very different platform for assignments and grades. Oops, sorry, dogs. It's very confusing. Can't we have one platform that everyone uses that lists each grade clearly so we know where we stand at all times? John, thoughts on that?
Yes, well, thank you for that question. So the university does support a learning management system called Brightspace. We switched over to Brightspace from Blackboard. That's my dog hitting the table right now. So sorry about that. We switched over in August, and right now about 75% of the courses at UMaine are active with Brightspace, and 86% of the courses at UMM. That said, you're right. Not all faculty will use, the LMS, and they may find other ways to, approach the way that they display grades and things like that. But for the most part, the vast majority of our courses are active in the Brightspace. And so hopefully, you can reach out certainly to your faculty members at any time if you have questions about those things.
Thanks, John. There's a question here about spring semester. Someone says, I was informed by a professor that a vote will soon take place regarding a return to campus for the spring. How soon will we know about learning modalities? So there are a couple questions here. And I guess what I would say to this is we have announced the start of the spring semester, the calendar change, which has us beginning a week late. And the plan at the moment is to continue in essentially the mode that we are in now. So the campuses would be open. There would be courses that would be offered across a range of modalities. I know that the spring semester schedule is being put together as we speak. And so I'll look to John and perhaps Dan to say a bit more about that on the specific campuses. But as far as things look right now, the plan is to continue as we have been. And there will be more testing and new rounds. And after we come back together, continue to move through the spring with that. John, any more to say about specifics in terms of when will people know what modalities will be assigned to basically to their courses?
Right. So November 2nd is when registration starts, and modalities will all be up then. And there will be very few that will be changed after that. It'll only be in certain circumstances would they be changed. So you'll have a better sense. Right now, as the president mentioned earlier in the town hall, there are over 70% of the courses have some level of face-to-face. We have over 40% of our students in a face-to-face course right now. And many of you probably have been participating. We do these weekly flash surveys, and what we found is the vast majority of you actually prefer some sort of face-to-face element. And right now, we're on par to have actually a little bit more face-to-face than the current 41% that we have right now. That's the, hopefully that'll hold up, but by November 2nd, when you start registering, you'll be able to have a clear idea of the different modalities.
Dan, how about at Machias? Would you like to say a little bit about how it is there?
Yeah, we've already got our spring term planned, and like John said, it'll be up and available for students soon. But there's not going to be any surprises. It's going to look very similar to this fall. But we are hoping to learn a lot of lessons from this fall to carry over into the spring, and hopefully improve on what we're doing in the fall and into the spring.
This is a good segue to hear from Harrison, Karina, and Avery. So from the perspective of students and your colleagues, what can you say to us about how it's going for you, for your friends, and what can we learn that we need to continue to keep in mind for spring? Harrison, you want to go first?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take the ball and keep it rolling. So just on our end, we've definitely heard some feedback about some student mental health. So we've been reaching out to student organizations about that and looking to aid that in whatever way we can. Another one is like students going hungry. Food, we noticed that a local food pantry has sort of run low on stock and supply. And so we're also looking at taking up some projects to help out there. But those have been two of the concerns that students have really brought up to us. It's just getting lonely. And so we're looking to that out as best we can.
Robert, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you, Harrison. In terms of student mental health, the Counseling Center has been doing some remarkable group work this semester, dealing with student groups who are either underrepresented or who are presenting unique mental health challenges. So there are a lot of groups going on that are both preventative and therapeutic. That's happening. The Counseling Center has seen a full complement of students for individual therapy, and also group therapy is going on. We've established a new relationship this year with the Psychological Services Center, which is the clinical psychology training program at the university. And there are 2 staff members who have been assigned out of the Counseling Center, so that's helped with our capacity. We've also opened a nice opportunity for women's mental health services with Mabel Wadsworth Center, which is a women's healthcare group in Bangor. And we have a relationship now with Northeast Crisis Counseling, which is part and parcel of our 24-hour availability staffed by both the counselors and the Northeast Crisis. Student government's been tremendous, and they're working to support a virtual opportunity for students, which would enable 24/7, 365-day access through a program called Protocol, or help me, Harrison.
Yeah, I can help you out. So the 2 that we were looking at was Protocol and Nod.
Nod, yes.
Yes, and we're going through those and handling information, finding out which one would work best. But yeah, we would love to support because that's sort of the feedback we've been getting. And I'm happy to relay that to you all as well.
Yeah, so that's really wonderful. So actually, there's been a very good amplification of services. We've just brought 2 new treatment personnel into the counseling center, so they're at full staff and seeing lots of folks and doing lots of great things. In terms of the food insecurity concerns, the Bodwell Center for Service and Volunteerism hosts our on-campus food and clothing pantry. It's located in York Village, and it is available. We've established this year a wonderful relationship with Good Shepherd Food Bank, which is the largest food bank potentially maybe in the Northeast, but we have been receiving gifts from both student government and many other groups to provide food support, and the pantry is there and ready to help. If anyone's listening, the easiest way is just write to me and I'll hook you up with the people at the food pantry. It's available to students, faculty, and staff, and many people do use it, and it's a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Karina, from the graduate student perspective.
Of course. First of all, I want to congratulate you for your efforts. You have managed to keep us sane and also safe. So it's not an easy thing to deal with. And pandemic is something that no one expected. And you dealt with that successfully, from my perspective, being from Europe and seeing things in a different perspective, as I said. So what I can tell you about how we feel the graduate students, I have to tell you that I'm also a graduate coordinator for one of the dormitories. So I talk to people constantly. And the 2 things that I have realized are that, first of all, many students feel anxious regarding their future plans. We don't know what we will do with our internships and how we can find a job now with coronavirus, and we have to return back to our countries. Most of us are international students here, and it's a rough subject to discuss. The second feeling that most students are experiencing at the moment is relief, because we are one of the most safest states in the US, and many students have appreciated that. And that's all for the feelings. But something else that I wanted to tell you, what we have done as the graduate government, 3 months ago actually, we offered a relief grant for the students, the graduate students who were having financial difficulties and lost their jobs. The grant amounted to $1,500. And I feel proud to tell you that we are trying to be next to the students, close to the community, and provide help, advice, and if we manage, resources. So thank you for your devotion and your hard work, because if you weren't that dedicated and passionate about the future of the University of Maine, we wouldn't be here discussing about it right now. So thank you very much from my heart.
Thank you. And listening to you and to Harrison, and we're going to hear from Avery, it's very clear that this is one big team that is really all pointed in the same direction and looking out for one another in remarkable and important ways. So thank you. Okay, Avery, pressure's on.
Okay. Yeah. At Matrias up here, when it comes to like masks, it seems like everyone's on the same page. I don't think I've ever actually seen anyone not like trying to stay safe, which is nice. And we've had events and whatnot to keep people like entertained, while still being safe at the same time. So it's definitely been, I'd say, successful in that regard. I know at least in Student Sense, some things brought up are like the commuter students, some of them aren't still on the same page just because of how things are. It's a lot more complicated. I know currently one of our goals in Student Sense is to try to get a better commuter student representation so we can hear more from it. And we've been coming up with some ideas for ways to get commuter students to be able to communicate with us, even if they can't like physically see us. So that's something that we've definitely been talking about. But otherwise, a big one is just, again, hasn't seemed to be any issues with students being safe. Teachers take everything really seriously. I'm a science major and I have a couple labs, and they're in person and we spend most of the time outside. So we have a whole guideline there. So I'd say it's been pretty good in that regard.
That's great. Good. There are several questions about the Alfond grant, so I can turn to those. But before I do, anything in general on the topics of academic affairs, student health and well-being, testing, other comments that anyone would like to make from the panel before we shift over and talk about the Alfond.
I just wanted to say from the mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing, letting somebody know if you're sick, and testing is for our on-campus students and off-campus students. This is equally important. And there's more observing eyes, if you will, on campus, and a little easier getting folks into that zone. But even for our students off campus, they've been doing a tremendous job of all of these behaviors, if you want to call them that. And it's so important because transmissibility, even in off-campus locations, say at a party or something like that, it could happen like wildfire. So I just want to encourage everybody to keep doing all the great work you're doing, wherever you're doing it. And even though it's difficult, it'll be an opportunity someday, you know, when you're in a different stage of development to look back and say, oh, you won't believe what I was part of achieving at the University of Maine. So keep up the great work.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking early on, someone asked Chancellor Malloy, well, why are you coming back? Why are we doing it that way? And his answer was, this kind of thing, this sort of momentous public event that's affecting the world is better experienced with other people together. There's a need for the kinds of supports that we're talking about here to be happening and to be a part of how we can feel like we are making some sort of a difference. So it's quite something to watch. You know, in the moment, it feels like we need to keep doing everything we're doing, which is true, but stepping back and just noting how everyone is playing their part in all of this diligently. I saw students skateboarding quite late at night last night, not really on campus. They were kind of across the street with masks. I mean, people are taking this very, very seriously. The question about, there's also a question about retiree health insurance. So let me take that and then we'll go to the Alfond questions. But the question is, what updates can you provide on the retiree health insurance changes? So some of you know about this, but there has been a change made by the University of Maine system in recent weeks about retiree benefits. And I checked in on this to find that the chancellor has sent a hard copy letter and FAQs to all retirees with additional information and with the attempt at clarifying some of the misunderstandings. Those should arrive today in the US mail. And retirees are making their appointments. There have been 222 of them so far, many more confirmed on and through mid-November with the new provider. It's really important, I think, to stop and say that our retirees as a collection of people they make the university, right? You all make the university. You have left your mark here in one way or another in every single job that you have been in. And so we know that attention to healthcare is critical for retirees, and the system is working hard to make its information more clear, to get back to people. I'm going to be sending out a communication soon, and we hope that as these appointments are being scheduled with the Aon benefits advisors, that your questions will be addressed and allayed. However, if they are not, I want to be sure you know where you can reach out to get further answers. So more to come on that, but thank you for the question, and thank you for all that you do. Indeed, today on the Orono campus, we were doing, I believe it happened, right, the drive-through recognition event for our retirees, where they were able to pick up their material and be congratulated. So thank you for that. So several questions now about the Alfond proposal. And it's called UMS Transforms, University of Maine System Transforms. And it, as I mentioned, is a extraordinarily large grant. This is over a 10 to 12-year period that these funds will come in. So this is a long-term opportunity to really rethink essentially many, many aspects of the ways in which our universities and our system work. One of the questions is about the way in which the University of Maine has recently increased its awareness of and commitment to change our values and relations around equity, institutional systemic racism, and other issues. And the question is, how will those be applied to the Harold Alfond Foundation grant? Well, for me, given my involvement in this grant, they are central, right? I mean, we are not going to be talking about student success and student opportunity across the state of Maine unless right at the middle of that, right in the center of that, we understand the place of all students, the place of diversity as being the way in which we reach success, the way in which we reach excellence is through our diversity. And so we have, as I've mentioned, the Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that has very broad reach. And the people who are on that council will be called upon to be partners and to work on the Alfond implementation. But I think it's a wonderful question and really the kind of question that I I ask myself pretty much about everything we do. You know, where are we? Where does inclusion fit here? Where is inclusive excellence? Are we thinking about this in the way we need to? So I believe that we have many, many people on our campuses who take that view, and the more people who do, the more central these discussions will become. The second question is, will other campuses receive any of the $90 million for their athletic programs? And in particular, there are questions for UMM, who has fields needing upgrades and courts. So the $90 million is a direct award to the University of Maine. The Alfond family and Mr. Alfond himself had great attachment to Division I athletics, to the importance of that to a state, really, not simply to a university, in the way that it brings people together, in the way that it provides opportunity to display teamwork and gathering of common interests. But what I will say about this gift in athletics is that the intention is for it to benefit people statewide, not only in the way that people can come together and enjoy D1 athletics, but also in providing upgrades and facilities and spaces that can be used much more broadly statewide for everything from high school state championships in athletics to other kinds of, I'm big on, like science fairs and math counts and those sorts of events, to community gatherings of a range of types. And as we work to bring up to speed the very, very sort of in need of repair University of Maine facilities, then we of course need to look at our partner at Machias and look at what their needs there will be too. But the Alfond dollars will be there to help us with the UMaine piece. And we're very, very pleased about that. They're also, by the way, speaking of the first question about the importance of equity, institutional systemic racism, and other issues, very strong Title IX focus in the Alfond dollars coming in, a way for us to ensure that women athletes and men athletes have the same kinds of fine facilities and opportunities that are needed here in this D1 program. So we're very pleased with that part too. So the discussions will be quite far reaching as this starts to take shape. Question about improving the quality and output of engineering students without increasing the quality of life in the state of Maine. Seems like I'm going to give this one to John Vollen. Didn't give you a warning, John, but maybe you've seen the question. So it says this: increasing the output and quality of engineering students without increasing the quality of life in the state of Maine seems like a plan to educate and then export high quality STEM workers to other states.
Yeah,
it's kind of unfair. He's been in the state like 6 weeks, but I have some other thoughts too. But what do you think on that one, John?
Well, I mean, I actually think it's a fair question. I mean, in part of the Alfond gift is not only to build up on, there goes my dog again, not only to build up on the educational aspects, but to work with industry partners here in the state. And so we don't want our students just to get their first job here. We want them to get their first job here and then stay here. So I think that's going to be all part of it. And certainly, increasing the access and, for education for Mainers across the state is a way to enhance the well-being, for all across the state. So I think it's actually can be very synergistic.
I think so. There's a second question that I think is tied to it. But a first point, I guess, that I would make is that, of course, engineering today is fully integrated with the humanities, the social sciences, the arts, even to many extents, in terms of thinking about the infrastructure in our state, the ways in which we have the capabilities to grow across fields and across disciplines. And so I think if we imagine very well-rounded engineers with lots of backgrounds across multiple areas being here as well-educated people to help make a difference in the future of Maine, that's a part of the picture. But there's an interesting, I wonder if it's the same person or somebody, anyway, same idea. Is there a plan to proportionally increase the humanities and arts outputs in the university system to create a more desirable place to live in order to increase the retention rate of STEM workers? So this is kind of an interesting question. It speaks to quality of life. It speaks to overall desirability of Maine as a place to live and work and learn. And I will say that when we did the University of Maine system-wide R&D plan in 2018, I guess, or beginning of 19, we really made a very big point of having an overarching goal that said, through the R&D work of the University of Maine system, we want to be sure that Maine is, and we were ambitious. We said is the best state in the nation in which to live, work, and learn, and that speaks to a breadth of emphasis, really. And as the state's flagship university here at UMaine, we are the place that needs to take, in terms of public higher education, take very seriously the comprehensive nature of those who come through this university. You know, one piece of the Alfond gift is in the student success area, there's a sub area that's called research learning experiences. And by research learning experiences, we basically are saying we want, or in that area, we're talking about making it possible for every first year student, first at UMaine, to have the chance to work with a researcher, a scholar, a person who does creative production. So basically, anyone whose work is about advancing knowledge, advancing the understanding of our society, and improving our place in society through the arts in particular. So we are looking to be a place that is certainly strong in STEM, but at the same time, gives students in their very first semester, if we can get there, a chance to find out what it is like to be on the front line of that kind of scholarly production, no matter what their interests. So I do think it's a great question and a good reminder that we have a comprehensiveness, and Robert's going to chime in as well.
Well, not only is it noted in the research development plan, but this goal is also the primary goal in our strategic vision and values, which states that we will support and grow Maine's economy through new discoveries and by building a workforce whose members are engaged in their communities and prepared for lifelong success. So it's a repeating theme, and I know that was part of the discussions you had with the Alfond group as well.
Absolutely. So I think it is pervasive, and I would say that as we talked about issues of diversity, excellence, equity, and inclusion, it's also important to recognize how much that interfaces with this conversation and question about breadth and preparation of Maine as a good place to live, as a desirable place to be. So a lot happening on all of those fronts. We seem to be not seeing a lot more questions. So if you're out there and you have some, you should send them in, which means that I'll call on people who are here who have not said very much yet. Marnie, let's hear a bit more about things in Machias.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have a little bit different testing. I was listening to Dick Young's talk a little bit how he's doing testing. I just wanted to let everybody know we are also doing randomized testing. It's a different group of population out here in Machias. Ours is actually a saliva test, so it's very different. And it's just because our small scale, we're able to do things a little bit differently. And that's, really speaks to our flexibility, our uniqueness. Students really like it. It's a little bit different. There's the sample rates are just the same. We have 24 to 48 hours to get those results back. And it's really in place to keep everybody safe. And so the people have been great about coming. We've been really flexible with our commuter students. I've been delivering them to students' cars so that they don't have to have childcare. We really want to be where the students are. And so whatever you need, just let us know. And being small and allows us that flexibility that we can help you where you're at. If you're having problems in your class still, just reach out. We also have had an uptick in mental health needs we've been really working hard to try and get some extra support for this campus and the students that need that. Don't be shy. We're all in this together. Our students here are great, and they're definitely chip in with one another.
That's great. Thanks. I'm going to put Melissa on the spot just a little bit. She's given her presentation about the science behind the pandemic, and that's great. But Melissa, say a little bit about what it's like as you're interacting with students. I don't know if you're teaching, but I know you're keeping your lab going this semester, and what you're sensing about kind of, how to say it, sort of public engagement with science. Like, I know your presentations are quite popular. People want to understand what's behind this. And are you sensing that your students also are kind of could get interested in that mission of helping the world to understand the science a bit more?
Absolutely. And I have a team of students that are working on a communication project to help communicate the science of COVID-19 into the community in ways to make it more tangible for people. And we think it really highlights the need for people to be able to think critically through the science, but there's so much information, and I think people are experiencing information overload, and they don't even always know where to go for the best sources of information, and then how to take conflicting pieces of evidence and think through that information to know what they should believe is true. And so my students are very interested in ways in which they can communicate that. And if there are ways in which we can communicate that across our campuses, we'd be happy to know about that. I recently made a video with some students and Bananas the Bear as a way to try to help communicate that.
You should all watch this, it's very good.
We tried to include a little bit of humor, and what we're hearing is that the best ways to reach students really is through social media and through the use of humor and through peer-to-peer communication and education. And those are the things that we're trying to embrace.
Thank you. There is a question that I can have Robert take, which is this. It's about health and safety. It says, many students visit other states during the weekends. How does UMaine monitor and test those students?
Well, we've sent forward expectations that people who, this isn't the correct word, but I can't think of a better word right now, violate the university's travel policy, that is, go to states where there are not exemptions, and there are exemptions now from many states, so that going to certain states and returning does not require either a quarantine or a test. But if a student were to go to one of their states, there is an expectation that they get tested or come with a test or go into quarantine. And it turns out that many students have done that. And many students have reached out for guidance and support before they've gone on a trip and decided against it because of the quarantine issues. But we have reporting mechanisms. If somebody had a concern, I actually had a letter over the weekend from a student very concerned that their roommate was going somewhere, and this person didn't want to have to be quarantined. But it turned out, and Dick helped me with this, that the person who was traveling wasn't going to a hot spot, and that they didn't need to be isolated or quarantined or tested. So the student asked confidentially, was responded to confidentially, and life went on. So you can do that either directly with me, or we have the COVID reporting lines, 207-581-2681. And you can call that at any time and talk to somebody, and we'll help you get your questions resolved.
Thanks, Robert. There's a question about the testing as well. Have any conclusions been drawn based on these random samples and subsamples? And yes, we are able to make inferences within confidence intervals about the prevalence rates, certainly for the system, and to some extent as well for the larger institutions, for UMaine in particular. And again, our prevalence rates are extraordinarily low. Melissa, I don't know if you have that number that was in the most recent information that was published, but in any case, you can find those on the testing dashboard site, I believe. And basically what you watch for, of course, is any variation between prevalence and the inferred prevalence rate and the rate in the area where you sit. You want to be roughly like where you're based, and that has been the case pretty much across the system. A reminder too, because there's a second question that's I think related to this. It says UNH has tested some 170,000 students, faculty and staff, with all students tested twice a week. Our numbers are different. So we have a multifaceted strategy in place, and Melissa described it. It has many pieces. It had entry baseline testing for essentially every student who was going to be living on or being on this campus. And then it has random testing, but that testing, remember, is only for those who are on the campus. And so the question has something about 30,000 plus UMS faculty, staff, and students. I think that that's the overall number, but the denominator here is smaller because it's about those who are on the campuses particularly. And we have the wastewater testing going on as well as a part of our surveillance testing. We have amplified testing, which is happening. It has happened at USM already, where when there is any reason to believe there might be a need to dive in more deeply in some particular part of the population, that is being done, not as part of the random sampling, but in addition to the sampling, and then these administratively determined tests that are available, as well as a change in the governor's executive order, which really makes it quite a lot easier in Maine to get a test. There's the question of how that's covered, but it is still quite possible now, given her order, for people to get a test if they wish. And what comes back to us is information from Maine CDC about any positive results, whether they came out of our testing or out of other testing that people are getting. So right now, we deem this to be an adequate approach. If we began to see spikes or inferences that had us concerned, then we might need to shift to something else. But every university is doing this differently. And this is our program at the moment, but we're watching it, daily. I don't know if Melissa or Dick would like to add to that.
I can speak to the part in terms of the university campus with the Emergency Operation Committee. We're into most areas with communication network, both the research wing, the academic wing, the child care center, all these different feedback through the emergency. We touch base at least weekly to every other week, depending on what's going on. We're asked questions all the time, and we provide and support testing when requested. I think the testing piece we're doing is the optics. You see it, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes of evaluating and talking to numerous people to make sure either testing is required or may not be required. But we take individual cases and work them through. So it's much broader than just the testing. A lot of communication going on as well.
Right, and I'll just add that testing is an important part of the multi-layered approach, but we have to keep in mind that testing provides you with a snapshot in time. So it lets you know whether you are positive or not on one particular day, and the next day you could become positive. So one of the most important things is really trying to prevent the transmission, and really wearing a face covering, physical distancing, hand hygiene, all of those things are so incredibly important in addition to the testing. But using all of those layers to our approach will really help to keep our numbers low, because we have been really successful at the University of Maine and across the University of Maine system. And that really, I think, has had to do with compliance and everyone coming together and doing their part. So I really applaud everyone for the efforts that they have made to keep themselves and their surrounding communities safe.
Thank you. Thank you all. And here's another now on the Alfond, and says the First Year Student Success Initiative. This is work that began at UMaine a couple of years ago, and the follow-up Learner Success Initiative resulted in a number of recommendations related to student success and retention. How will the recommendations from these be utilized in considering investment opportunities related to retention? Well, I can tell you honestly that they were at the core of how we made the argument to the Alfond Foundation. What came out of those that work was a lot of data, a lot of good direction really for what learner success can look like, what first year student success can look like. including the importance of linking academic affairs with student life, and making sure that we have an integrated and holistic approach to helping students be successful. But that said, the pieces that are in the Alfond are quite specific to this engagement idea, which was found to be very important. The notion of getting students engaged with a faculty member in some kind of a research experience early. The second piece has to do with the introductory gateway courses. Again, something that's been much discussed on the UMaine campus, and whether we are providing the absolute very best possible experience in those critical courses that make a difference in students' futures. And then a third piece will be a focus on career pathways and support for development toward career choices that are tied to career pathways through the college experience. That said, student success, as I've mentioned, is a very broad and very comprehensive kind of domain. And so what we envision, because of the large match expected in the Alfond work, is that there will be complementary work that is more amenable to, a range of funders that will broaden out and expand even further. So those two the first document, the Learner Success Report, has been very central to this all along. And stay tuned for more. Okay, I think I'll do a last round for a few. I'll just warn you all. And I think pretty much I think I'll go to Kimberly, Dan, and then hear from our three students. If you have any last offerings here as we continue through, but get ready to close, I think. So Kimberly.
Sure, thank you, President. I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues who have thanked our university community for keeping us healthy and safe and in compliance with what the guidelines that have been laid out. There's been a tremendous effort and care given to making sure that we're all able to be together on campus. And I especially applaud our students for the great things that they have done in terms of keeping us safe, wearing a mask, social distancing. So just thank you all for your efforts. Thank you for being with us. And if there's anything that we can do from the Office of the President, and I'm specifically talking about myself, please feel free to reach out to me. And just thanks again for all of your great efforts.
Thank you, Kimberly. Dan.
Here at Machias, we've also been working pretty closely with retention and student success and trying to find strategies to improve the whole experience. And so we're really looking forward to putting some of those initiatives into effect.
Great. Okay, Harrison?
I would also just like to thank both the leadership for having a functioning college this year, but also to students who have really taken a part of that as well, because this really does have to be a team effort for it to work out. Just general thank yous going around.
Okay, Karina?
I just want to say that we are in this together. No one is alone. If you feel, for all the students who might feel alone and maybe depressed because of the weather and the whole situation, feel free to connect with the community and especially with the graduate government. We are representing you. We are giving voice to your concerns. So feel free to email us, attend our Senate meetings, try to be engaged and see what we are doing for you. And just positive energy, and we will go through this. Thousands of people have gone through different years and different issues from the 40s and 50s. Now is a time to understand that we are all together and we have, thank God, the online technology to connect.
Great. Avery.
Yep. I want to just thank faculty and administration for enforcing the safety guidelines and for students for following it. No teacher has let up at all about cleaning up after, we're in a room, stuff like that. So no one's gotten lazy about it. And I think that's a huge aspect on keeping us all safe. So I definitely want to thank them for doing that, as well as the students for really listening and not going against it or something like that. We'll get through it. At some point, this will be over and we'll all look back and be like, yeah, we were part of, this event and we kept each other safe during it.
That's great. 6.5 weeks or so to go until Thanksgiving. We have to stay with this, stay on it. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say to conclude? All righty then, thank you all for participating. We'll do more of these if you find them useful, and enjoy your day and stay safe. Thank you.